Admiral.
Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call the March 18th, 2021 regular Des Moines City Council meeting to order. Will Councilmember Harris please lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Nutting is absent tonight due to a pre-planned and noticed event. Is there a motion to excuse?
So moved.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Mahoney,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Banks. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. Okay, I see Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Bangs, and myself. Okay, passes. He is excused. At this point, we will go to correspondence and public comment. Are there any correspondence or public comment?
Yes, Mayor, public comment from Rick Johnson regarding Redondo parking lot, and Sybil Davis regarding the Des Moines Masonic Home. And we do have 5 people with public comment, and the first one is Hope Steele.
Okay, before we take comments from the public, I'd just like to remind those that any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who become boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the council will be muted and removed from the meeting. And so the first person coming in is?
Hope Steele, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
You cannot hear me.
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, great. So my name is Hope Steele, and I'm on the board of directors at Redondo Beach Condominiums. And our condo building is directly next to the Redondo Boat Launch parking lot. And I wanted to address the subject of the redevelopment of the Redondo Pier area. My condo unit actually faces the parking lot. So the happenings in that area are very significant, of importance to myself and our community here. We do have a suggestion of moving the bathroom building to the northwest corner of the lot. I think right now the plan is to build it where the little pay kiosk is. And this would be on the corner where Redondo Way and Redondo Beach Drive meet. And we'd suggest as well that the bathrooms would face the street side of either Redondo Way or Redondo Beach Drive. And that the showers for the divers would be on the south side of the building. And then the concessions would also face the street side. Also, we would like to see the bathrooms without locking doors, as they currently are. The concern is with the activity that we see locally, and I see it all from my big picture window that goes on down here. I just think that would give another venue for not so good activity to be taking place behind a locked door. We've had discussions regarding the proposed plans with our neighbors behind us at Redondo Heights condominiums, and going forward, my board members and myself, we would, along with their board of directors, would like to participate in future discussions in regards to the best solution for the location and design of the bathroom and concession stand building. Also would like to recommend maybe some type of a setting like a town hall style meeting where residents could come and give concerns and recommendations. We could even have it outside if the COVID regulations, wouldn't allow us to have it inside, maybe in the parking lot or across at the park. So those would be my concerns and ideas at this point as far as the redevelopment of the bathroom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the input. The next person to speak?
Mayor, the next person is Ryan Hesselgesser.
Ryan.
Hesselgesser.
Can you guys hear me?
Ryan, you're out there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you? So I am the president of South Highline National Little League. The Little League encompasses Normandy Park and portions of Des Moines. The current situation is that we are having a season. We've started practicing. We have a significant amount of signups. The issue we're running into is field availability. Highline School District we usually rely on them to rent Mar Vista, North Hill, and the elementary schools for our league. They're not renting currently. We haven't been provided a reason why other than COVID. The city in the past, we've had rented the Underwood Field for events and some games. And then I know the field house is either under construction or not. I'm not currently, I don't know exactly if it is or not, but our concern would be trying to get additional fields. Currently, we have too many teams. Right now, we have Normandy Park City Hall that's available that we're practicing on. But we're now having to go to Tequila to rent fields. And we tried to rent through the city of Des Moines and said they weren't renting, hopefully maybe in the summer. I guess I would just urge the city to think about opening the fields now, because we have a lot of younger kids and a lot of younger parents that are coming over, particularly because the soccer program is not active. And we have a lot of enrollees this year, and having them drive to Tequila and paying rental fees outside of the community in which the Little League is, I would like to see it go to the city, and I'd like to see the people stay close. So typically the city does not rent us. We don't rely on those fields, but I'm just kind of bringing it to the attention that, it's a current situation, and anything the city could do to help to move along opening up the field, particularly the Underwood Field. And if it's ready, the field house, if the soccer isn't currently active. We do have a return to play plan in place, and everything that we were doing is complying with the current guidelines by the state, which allows sports activities. And so I guess I don't know what the concern is with not opening the fields at this time. And so any more information on that would be helpful as well. We were just told no. So that's my concern. It's really just an urging to see, hey, make these fields available if we can, to keep these people local. So I don't have anything further, but that would be the issue that I wanted to raise tonight.
Mayor, if I may. Appreciate your comment. I think that everyone's having a challenge with the disparate kind of opening and dynamic among different jurisdictions, cities, all of that. And we appreciate that. And we're in the process of being cautious, but we're also looking at what the opportunities are to, accommodate demand. Like, for example, you're describing Little League. I mean, everybody loves Little League, right? But, I've coached it for years. So, but the thing is, we will look at that carefully. We will be in touch with you. And we will see as we go forward if we can continue what's occurring in the state of Washington without kind of falling off the cliff, but it stays stable. That's discussion we can have. And I would just mention to the council, when we consider something like this, there's also park maintenance employees, administration. There are a number of things that go into accommodating an independent league. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just something to be aware of. So as we come back into being open, we will certainly consider your request and we'll be in touch with you.
I very much appreciate that. And anything we can do to alleviate any concerns on our end, happy to work with you guys. So
great.
All right, thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Bill Willett.
Bill Willett.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My name is Bill Willett. I'm the VP for the Redondo Beach condominiums, and my particular unit is directly south of the parking lot here. And Hope Steele's our president. As she stated, we've met with the Redondo Beach Heights condominiums board. And one of the big things that came out of that meeting was security for this area, and especially in the parking lot. I'm sure you're aware that there have been some issues down here recently, one with a diver, and nightly we get people out here doing donuts in the parking lot. It can get a little bit crazy. All the boards, we agreed that there should be a paid parking system in place, a gated parking system in place, much like the Des Moines Marina has. And we think that the structure that you're planning for the restroom should also include a police substation or marina security force substation that can be manned during peak evening and weekend periods. Those are my comments. And I also submitted some questions, and I'm not sure how that gets done, but I trust Bonnie will get those to you.
Yes, the staff will take a look at the questions and get back.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Next is Lynette Stevenson.
Next speaker is Lynette Stevenson.
There we go, unmuted. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today about the Des Moines Masonic Home. So I have enjoyed the beautiful city of Des Moines for many years, having grown up in the area, and I have relatives that live in the city of Des Moines. The Masonic Home is such a tremendous, irreplaceable historic treasure, as I think you all well know. A little bit of research and background for those not on the board that are in the meeting. The building was completed in 1927, and the approximate cost, I guess in today's dollars, $20 was $13.1 million. 5 stories, 225 rooms, 129,000 plus square feet of floor area, glassed-in solarium porches, formal dining room that can seat 200 people, a social room, a chapel, a library, theater space, commercial kitchen, resident shops, healthcare wing, and lodge meeting room. Along with, of course, it has terrazzo floors, stained glass windows, and just irreplaceable architectural features. So I had an idea. I had recently attended an event about a new senior co-op that's opening in the Puyallup area, and thought this might be a possible consideration for this beautiful building to be repurposed that may not have been considered yet. There are many senior co-ops in the Midwest and a few on the East Coast, but very few on the West Coast. They're a growing part of the market. Individuals become part owners of the building, purchasing a unit, and also pay a monthly maintenance fee that covers maintenance, light assistance, and property taxes. Co-op living gives residents a stake in how a community is managed. This could be a possible private, public-private partnership option. The website for the new co-op is villagecooperative.com, if anyone wanted to look at that. And also seniorhousingnews.com has additional information on the growing senior co-op housing market. With the strong need and demand for housing in our area, any housing consideration for either seniors or workforce housing would be a tremendous asset to King County. Another thought would be to allow the investors to subdivide the 30 acres that the Masonic Home sits on. That would possibly be something that in exchange of turning the building over to the city in exchange for the subdivision and possible development. Though the building would, the Masonic home would block Puget Sound views of homes built behind it. With our demand for housing, I expect the investors would have the ability to build many homes and profit from those. I do believe members of the community want to support your efforts in working toward a positive outcome that involves preservation of this building. Another thought was with the changes and the emergency declarations due to our current pandemic, that possibly an emergency declaration moratorium could be put in place on demolition plans due to the current economic times because of the pandemic. This would give the city more time to sort out best options for this historic treasure. Once the economy is back in full swing, this significant historic building can become a landmark for the city, county, state, and country. I think it is the last Masonic home in Washington state. Thank you, council members, for your time and for your service to the city.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
You know, what I'd like to do, Bonnie, if you could put me in touch with Ms. Stevenson, I would like to kind of talk through what you've suggested, and also kind of emphasizing the reality at this point where ownership of the landmark is in private hands, which seriously restricts the city's ability to take action. But I think that the comments you make are more than fair, and I'd like to kind of fill you in on the backstory if that's possible, if that would be valuable.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
And I'll reach out to you, Ms. Stevenson. And last but not least, Barry Costello.
The next speaker is Barry Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the third element of the Redondo Beach condo group here with Hope and Bill. I'm on the board with them. And as they had indicated, we just wanted to be here with you tonight and express our concerns about the way forward. Yeah, my piece of the puzzle, though, is very positive in the sense that we're encouraged. Recent police presence down here with us. On Tuesday night, I was out there, 6 o'clock, police officer was there. He was ensuring people had tickets, and if they didn't have the appropriate parking tickets, he cited them. And he also, his presence caused a number of bad actors to go away. And I had a long talk with him and showed our appreciation for them being there. Just their presence is a significant deterrent to bad activity, as you can imagine. So we appreciate that. I appreciate, Mr. Mayor, your response to my correspondence, as well as Tracy's responses, as well as J.C. Harris's responses to our correspondence out there. We've talked to Andrew, city engineer, and he's been very upbeat and responsive and receptive to our input. I think part of the onus has been on us in the sense that we weren't really fully aware of the vision for the future. And so now that we are aware, we are eager to be a positive force to work with Andrew and with you to figure out what's the right solution, what's the best solution, taking into account the environmental issues, taking into account the environment for the residents down here. There's 37 units where we live here, Redondo Beach, and a significant number behind us at the Heights. And so that's why we want to be partners with you going forward. And at the end of the day, my last point is for our group, at the end of the day, our goal is the same as yours, and that is to create a safe environment, to create a healthy environment, and to appreciate that potentially this will continue to get to be a busier place, particularly in the summer months. And we look forward to having those families come down and enjoy the beach. Our concern is to make sure that they also are safe, whether it's from the traffic, whether it's from others, that small element of bad actors or otherwise. And that's why we have mentioned the idea of copying the north parking lot with the gate system or something like that, potentially having a police or a marina substation down here, and other things such that the community can partner with the city engineer, and with the police to make this whole thing work. And that's the extent of my comments. Thank you for allowing us to reach out to you tonight.
Thank you for your input. And I believe that concludes.
Mayor, point of privilege. Dan Brewer would like to say something.
I'm sorry, I didn't see Dan's hand.
I
Thank
just wanted to mention to Hope, Bill and Barry, next Thursday night, starting at 3:30, we have a municipal facility committee meeting, and we do plan to talk with the committee members briefly about this project. So wanted to make sure you knew about that meeting next Thursday, starting at 3:30, municipal facility committee. This will be an item of discussion there. So
thank you for bringing that up, Dan.
That'll be a Zoom meeting, right? So Bonnie could send the invitation to the three of you.
Yes, I was writing that down, actually, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that completes our public comment portion, and it will take us forward to the admin report. So at this point, I will turn the microphone over to City Manager Matthias.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. I have a relatively full admin report tonight. A number of very different types of issues. Want to bring you up to date. So indulge council in your patience. We've indicated to our speakers and presenters that they need to be timely. But the first thing is a really exciting update for the council, and that is having to do with the new Maritime High School, which is being developed through Highline School District. And we had the opportunity, myself and Robert Holmes, to talk with Stephen Strufert, their Chief Development Officer, probably 2 months ago, about the potential Des Moines presents to the high school. And I think that, so we'll have two people from the high school talking with us tonight. But I want to point out what Stephen was excited about, and what we've stated in communication is the marina offers so many opportunities for participation and contribution to the high school. In terms of the marine mammal rescue is there. We're looking at ways for establishing environmental sustainability and helping with salmon enhancement and other things associated with Des Moines Creek. We're making improvements to the water quality in the sound. We have a boatworks, CSR boatworks. We have an active marina. We're looking at expansion of the marina redevelopment process. There's just multiple ways that, and multiple values that can be associated with the school. So we're excited, and it's my pleasure to introduce Tremaine Holloway, is the inaugural principal of Highline Public Schools, and for the Maritime, and also Stephanie Burns, Northwest Maritime Center project manager for Maritime High School. So the two of them will give you an update on where we are. Tremaine, nice to see you.
Nice to see you also, Michael. All right, Stephanie, I know you're here. Hey, how you doing, Matthew? I see you. Sorry, there's so many people on the screen here. I apologize for that.
Hey, Tremaine,
I'll let you kick us off, Stephanie. Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Okay. Great. Can I get a thumbs up from folks? Make sure you can see great, thanks. So great to meet everyone and see everyone. As was mentioned, my name is Stephanie Burns. I am a program manager for the Maritime High School, and I work with Northwest Maritime Center, which is based in Port Townsend, not too far from where you all are. And then Tremaine, do you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Thanks, Stephanie. So again, my name is Tremaine Holloway, founding principal of Maritime High School, former co-principal at Highline High School. So I see some familiar faces here. Matthew Mahoney, I see you. Pleasure to see you again. And so I'm not actually moving from the Des Moines area, because we'll be based out in the Olympic temporary site once again. So we'll probably continue to forge another relationship or forge this relationship in the future. But before we begin, anytime I'm co-facilitating or facilitating a presentation, I always like to begin with the land and people's acknowledgement. So I'll just kind of go through this real quick. We begin by acknowledging that we are on ancestral land stewarded since time immemorial by the Salish people of the Duwamish, Green, White, Cedar, and Upper Puyallup rivers, many of these giving birth to the contemporary citizens of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe. We honor and give thanks that we are able to collectively engage in this conversation in their sacred homelands about the future of teaching and caring for our sacred children and youth.
All right, so with as anything that we do, it does always involve a little bit of student participation or audience participation. So I'm just curious with the group that's in the room here is, what do you think of when you think of maritime? And I know we can't chat, but maybe you can just unmute yourself and just, as we say, popcorn style. What do you think of when you think of maritime?
Voting.
Waterside, anything waterside.
Conservation.
Merchant Marines.
Anything else?
Cargo, professional fishing.
Right, so maritime is anything that is connected to the sea. So while we often think about boats and jobs that involve boats or being on boats, that is part of it. And what we're also wanting to make sure that our youth understand that it is as broad and as deep as our ocean. That there are lots of opportunities within the maritime industry. If maybe it means that you don't want to get on a boat and go away for 10 years at a time. I mean, if you want to do that, that can happen as well. But we really want youth to understand how diverse and broad the maritime industry is. Jermaine, was this me or you? I can take this one if you want.
Either or, it's fine.
Okay.
You got it.
All right. So Maritime High School is a collaborative effort. And there are 4 partners that are working together right now. That is Highline Public Schools. They're their administering school district that it will be opening the school this fall. Northwest Maritime Center, Port of Seattle, and Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition, which is a nonprofit environmental justice organization that's based in South Park. And so while these are the 4 partners who've been working really closely together, as of late, there are other partners that we know that we are going to be working with and collaborating with. I have had probably close to 30 or 40 conversations over the last couple of weeks with other community collaborators from the maritime industry, from environmental science organizations, from ocean sciences organizations. So we know that this school is going to, as I said, involve all aspects of maritime. All you, Jermaine.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how the community and the industry actually will be involved with the families as well. So this school is going to take one of those community engagement approaches. So we have cross-sector design team, and when I talk about that, we're actually referring to those partnerships that Stephanie just actually listed. So Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition, Port of Seattle, Northwest Maritime Center, and as we grow as a school, we'll definitely look to acquire more partnerships for our students to be able to engage with. So that particular design team is actually in part of the school's inception. Stephanie serves as a project manager, so she's doing a lot of work to really engage a lot of our community partnerships and industry partnerships, which will essentially become mentorship programs and internship programs for our students. We also have an advisory board that's composed of folks in the maritime industry and folks who are, when I think about people who are in the marine and ocean sciences industry as well. And we meet quarterly. And so that's been a really good guiding board for us as we do this work and as we prepare to go into the school and create the school to open this fall. Community engagement is going to be a huge piece for us. I think about the community down in South Park, the Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition, in terms of how they've been desiring for us to make sure that the community is involved with the decisions that we're making. Now that I think about it, one of the things that we did for our particular interview process of our teachers was really incorporate community, really incorporate industry partners within that process. So it wasn't just me at the table making the decisions. It was information that was gathered from our community partners, our industry partners as well. And then also student engagement in the school design. So one of the fascinating things about being at something that's brand new, and you can be innovative, you can be creative. So our students in this inaugural class of 2025 will have a lot of say and a lot of voice in how the school will be designed and how it will look. And so we're excited and thrilled to know that although we'll be in Des Moines at the temporary site temporarily, but in the future, we're starting to think already about what the building will essentially look like from a design and architectural point. Next slide there. So you're probably wondering what students will learn. So this is going to be one of those schools that is experiential. I'm a huge champion and proponent of project-based learning, or like what Stephanie likes to call learning-based projects, because I really do believe that the learning happens through the projects and the collaboration, the thought partnering happens while students are working on these projects. So obviously, standards are going to be there, required for students to graduate, with a high school diploma. And they'll also have the ability and opportunity to have the teacher that they choose, whether it's college or something career going. And then basically everything will be kind of in that context of maritime. So we really want to foster the interest of maritime and marine ocean sciences. The 3 programs that we're focusing on are what I mentioned earlier: marine ocean sciences, vessel operations, as well as maritime construction. And so the context and that landscape of those 3 programs will basically encapsulate the maritime industry. And we'll also have a partnership with the University of Washington. They have a program called UW in the high school, and that will essentially allow students to be able to obtain college credit or be dually enrolled during their time there. There will be some AP courses offered as well, but we're leaning heavily on the college and the high school because we have a partnership with them. There are also some folks on our advisory board who also have that connection as well. All right, how students will learn. I think this was mine too, right, Stephanie? Sure, I could talk about this either way. All right, so how students will learn, like I mentioned before, project-based learning. So I really believe that our students are going to learn by doing, because I'm a huge fan of that. I'm a huge fan of experiential learning. I have a huge goal of our students actually getting out in the field at least twice a week. So obviously students are going to need to be sometimes in the classroom to learn some of those fundamental skills before they're going out into the industry or they're doing these internships. But the reality is the best form of learning comes by doing and by experience. And so I definitely want to get our students out in the field and out in the industry. There will be a lot of interdisciplinary or integrated learning across curriculum. Currently, right now, we have a STEM position, so a teacher who's focusing on the maths and sciences. And we have a teacher who's focusing on the humanities. We're starting really small, but as we grow, we still will try to keep that same cohort model and ensure that students are having that interdisciplinary experience. So when it comes to instruction, they'll have a lot of crossover in terms of learning, because essentially project-based learning encompasses all types of learning from all different ways and different shapes and forms. But we also want to make sure that it's strengths-based as well. So here we have written down, it says specially designed supports in the field and the classroom based on student strengths and needs. We do realize that some of our students will be coming from different backgrounds. We'll also have some special education accommodations potentially. So we want to make sure that we're supporting them in that, and so they have all the supports that they need. And then obviously we want to celebrate the learning. So when things are going well, when students are having a great time at the Port of Seattle or Northwest Maritime Center making these trips, Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition doing some work there, we want to celebrate that. We want to elevate and celebrate that and ensure that our students are being celebrated with their learning, because it's all about how can we make this impactful for them and how can we make it fun for them too. All right, this is the cool slide. So no grades. You see that at the first very top. So you're probably like, whoa, why is that? Like that is a foreign concept for me. So I have the privilege and honor of saying that last week we were able to obtain a waiver from the State Board of Education to move in the direction of what I would like to consider as an equity-based thinking or equity-driven decision to actually move towards utilizing this particular transcript here. I won't go into too many details about mastery transcript, but there's the link that's provided for you if you would like to do a little bit of research. What's so fascinating about this particular transcript is essentially when it comes to project-based learning, I feel like it maps on perfectly with project-based learning and how students actually demonstrate their knowledge and demonstrate their mastery. So this particular transcript is an alternative transcript that will not reduce our students to letters and numbers. It will literally tell the full story of a student and their experience and their learning. For every student who's utilized this particular transcript, they've gotten into their school of choice. And also, it's given them a really good opportunity to really share their knowledge and the skills that they have learned so that they're not just talking about, oh, I just got an A in Algebra 2. No, they can actually tell the standard, the skill, and what they've learned and what they've acquired over time. I think that this, in my opinion, is a way to move towards breaking down and deconstructing the status quo and moving forward in terms of ensuring that our students have an equitable opportunity for the future that they choose.
All right, so now I get to talk about one of my favorite things, which is what will the learning actually look like? And so Tremaine has mentioned a lot about project-based learning, or PBL, or as I like to call it, learning-based projects, because the onus really is on the learning and ensuring that our students are learning that and mastering those skills and being able to demonstrate that. So I love thinking about having been in education for almost 25 years. A lot of it has been around project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, experiential ed, environmental ed. My classrooms have been on the decks of boats and in the outdoors, and I think there are very few more powerful learning environments than that. And in my experience, I think when we blur the line between school and community, that's really where we build on that really powerful learning experience. So learning at this high school could look like providing youth with tools and opportunities to build math and carpentry skills. I think about the learning or mathematics classes that I've had over my educational career, and wow, I feel like I would have gained so many more skills and understanding of math had I had it taught in this way, being hands-on, and not just hands-on, but we talk a lot about in PBL about being hearts-on and minds-on and as well. And so what that looks like, and also how this learning applies outside or beyond the four walls of the classroom. I can't tell you how many times I've heard a student say, well, why does this matter? Why do I need to know this? Well, PBL helps answer or provide the answer to that question because it makes those connections between what the students are doing in the classroom or what they're learning to how this applies to that world beyond the four walls of the classroom. Learning might also look like navigating on a boat and setting a course and applying that physics knowledge and that content. You probably have heard, and maybe in the recesses of your brains, a speed, distance, time relationship. So rather than that being a bunch of letters or even numbers on a page, that literally gets brought to life when it's on a boat and a student is looking at a chart and you're, saying to that student, you've got to get us here and you need to tell me, how long it's going to take us and how we're going to do that and set our course. That student starts to develop that ownership and that excitement and that engagement in that learning. Learning also looks like providing equitable opportunities and access for all learners. As Tremaine said, this is an equity-driven school. Tremaine is an equity-driven leader, and I am incredibly honored and humbled to be part of this and helping figure out how we make learning accessible, especially for those students who are further from educational justice and resources and opportunities. And then it also looks like giving high school youth chance to build relevant maritime experience, certifications, and literally survival skills. So we envision these students getting certifications. Maybe it's basic firefighting. It could be other Coast Guard certification courses that are going to help them along what other path or paths that they choose to travel for themselves. And so that can look a variety of different ways. Yeah, and it looks like fun too, as Jermaine said. Nothing like being on a boat with a bunch of kids when they're having a good time.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. So I'll share just some logistical things here. So we've had an application process already. It concluded in January 31st. The goal was to get about 45 students. We wanted to do a soft launch this year and do a lottery process within the folks who actually applied. And the lottery process will continue on in the years later on. This year we're doing 45, and classes beyond this year will be 100 until we build up to about 425 students. So that's essentially the application process there. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, Stephanie. And yeah, so that's essentially, everything there. If you have any questions, feel free to, to share, add something to the chat. And I will also put my information in the chat if you would like to reach out to me via email as well.
I don't think there's a chat here, Tremaine.
You're right, we're on YouTube.
It's disabled.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Tremaine, I just wanted to say one thing with the leave of the mayor is that, we're incredibly excited. I mean, first of all, I think your enthusiasm, Stephen's, it just comes out, and Stephanie as well. And I think one of the things that's specific to Des Moines is we're excited by what you're doing. We're excited to have a marina that relates directly to many of the topics and subjects you've talked about. And so ways we can collaborate on that to enhance the value of that marina relative to the educational process. Being a relatively unique city with that marina, we're excited, and it's just great to hear your enthusiasm. It's buoying, so just to make it fun, but it's great. So thank you.
Before we move forward, there are a couple of hands. I saw Councilmember Bangs and Deputy Mayor Mahoney. I'll start with Councilmember Bangs.
So Tremaine, Stephanie, thanks. That was a really good presentation. I realized that there was the application online and it's already sort of been filled, I guess, at this point. I would say, how will you make sure, because this has been historical, especially in the maritime industry, where children or BIPOC children will be heavily involved, and the lottery system doesn't assure that. And I'm not talking about having these special choices, but that typically has happened in the past. And we want to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're speaking my language, actually. So I appreciate you asking that question. One of the main reasons why I wanted to take this position on was because, one, I have limited knowledge in the maritime industry, and I'm learning and I'm researching and getting better and better and learning more about it. And the second thing is, I wanted students who look like me, walk like me, talk like me, and want to lead like I lead, have that same exact opportunity to be in an arena where they might not be as represented. If you think about maritime, it's been an arena where a lot of folks are starting to retire out. And so now if we think about it from an innovative and creative perspective, if we can get our students here in Highline, which is probably one of the most diverse districts within the state of Washington in comparison to Tukwila, we get our students an opportunity to have these experiences, these really in the field experiences that will create a notion and a move to change that demographic that's in the maritime industry. I myself, I want to be that conduit for that. And so, like Stephanie mentioned, one of my values is equity. So I'm actively and aggressively looking to recruit students, BIPOC students, and also BIPOC staff at our school, because one of my favorite quotes is from Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. How can I be like you if I don't see me, right? So I want to make sure we have teachers that reflect the student population, and then that would essentially help with the conduit of being able to get students into this organization, in this industry.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Stephanie, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that. A lot of the work that I've been involved in, and I know that Tremaine has as well, and through the district, is specifically connecting with communities that are sort of in the region, working with, targeted parent groups and community organizations and groups like that, because those are the groups that are also going to have connections for the youth, or to the youth that we are wanting to target and to recruit. And so we're trying our best to get that word out there as much as we can. And so there are specific, community-based organizations that maybe work with specific youth. I'd love to know about those, so we can make sure that they're on our newsletter, because while we're launching next fall, we are going to, soon after that, have another group of ninth graders and another group of ninth graders after that. So a lot of this is really community outreach and making sure communities understand what is Maritime High School, what are the opportunities that are available. And so that the more we can do that engagement, the better.
Okay, and I think the next person was Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and I also see a hand from Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Stephanie. Tremaine, man, it's so good to see you again, and glad you're involved. I guess my question is if you're interested in taking up my help. I'm an active scuba diver. I know a lot of the dive shop owners and the dive clubs in the area. Like to meet with you, maybe introduce you to those folks. I'm sure that you're probably talking to SR3 and the Mast and the Harbor Master and, CSR Marine and so forth. Also would love to introduce you to the yacht clubs and associations. And the one question I had was, are you guys looping the Coast Guard into this as well?
So I'll jump in, and then you could add anything, Tremaine. So as I mentioned in the presentation, I think I've had about up to 40 calls in the last couple of weeks with these community collaborators. They have included S3 or SR3, and MAST, I think, is another one that's I'm connecting with next week. I also have a conversation scheduled with a couple of U.S. Coast Guard captains. With that said, yes, Matthew, like to send us resources, send us community collaborators. As Tremaine said, we want our students to be involved in mentorships and internships. And so that's going to take some scaling in terms of that, especially when we're at full capacity. So I welcome any resources or community collaborators. We've got a form for folks to fill out, and yeah, we'll get them set up.
Cool. Looking forward to talking to you later.
Okay, Councilmember Harris.
Just a quick comment, not putting the cart before the horse, but I just wanted to point out that jobs in the maritime industry tend to be extremely well compensated in a lot of sectors. So, I hear from parents, they want to, just down the line, it's extremely satisfying, a lot of the jobs that I know of. And, if you want to focus, your child has an interest in this stuff, it's just, thank you very much. Thank you. That's it.
I believe I saw Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't tell you how excited I am about this. It's thrilling to me. I had one of my kids went to aviation high school. He spent some time at the Olympic campus. Then he was able to move into the new building while he was there. And it was such an exciting thing to be right there across the street from Boeing Field, and for all those kids to be all kind of very similar interests. And I am so excited that somebody's pulling this all together for these young people coming up through the ranks, and that it's happening in this community. This is really thrilling. And I don't know if you can answer this question, but do you have any idea long range where the permanent building might be, or an area where it might be?
I can speak to, well, I won't say that we haven't identified a location or anything like that, but there is a common interest to ensure that, the building is somewhere near and close to waterfront, right? So really thinking about that when in the future. There's been also some conversations about potentially being close to the Duwamish River and potentially being down near the South Park area in the future. There's nothing that's been landed yet, so I don't want to speculate. I think, wherever it may be, I just want it to be a great location for our students to be able to have access to the water, to be able to have access to the building, and a great opportunity for their future that they choose. So if you know of any places or have any things in mind, please let us know. We'd love to, continue to start building now if we can.
The only comment I'd like to make, I think all council members that have wanted to weigh in have. I was involved with the Highline School Board when they started doing thematic high schools and so forth. And although I am tremendously excited by the idea of having a maritime high school, that especially in where we are, that just so makes sense. But one of the things that folks, I want to make sure folks understand is this is a thematic high school. The curriculum's based around maritime activities and everything, but not all these students choose to go that direction in the future, but it doesn't limit them. And that's what's amazing. It actually expands their opportunities. So I guess at the risk of being corny, the world becomes their oyster. So I really, really enjoyed the presentation, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm delighted that you guys are at least starting in Des Moines, and we'll see what the future has to bring. And with that, I will go back to City Manager Matthias.
Yeah, thank you guys again. Look forward to working with you in any way we can. So our next item is going to be a brief presentation by the Port of Seattle on the South King County Fund, and that's Elise Aiden, Allison Beeson, and Andy Gregory. Are just going to fill us in on some of the activities the port is involved with regarding especially environmental issues.
Hello. Hey. My name's Allison Beeson. I'm with the Port of Seattle, and I'm here with Elise Aiden and my colleagues, Andy Gregory, and we're going to tell you a quick update about South King County Fund. Next slide, please. So for your understanding, this started in 2018, but we just started funding last summer for the economic development, and this last fall for the fall environmental grant program. Next slide, please. And so with this South King County Fund, we had $1 million for economic recovery, and then we had $250 each for economic development and the environmental grants. Next slide, please. And so one of the things that we want to do, I'm from the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. We wanted to make sure that we made equity one of the forefronts when it came to investing in the South King County area. We used an equity index to look at how communities are impacted by a census block group area, and looking at some of the environmental, economic, and historical inequities that have happened in the community, so we can leverage our resources better and make sure that we put our resources where they would have the most impact in the community. Next slide, please. And so with the economic recovery program, we had over 27 applicants. We have 10 proposals that we recommended to the commission for funding, which resulted in over $980,000 in awards. So I'm going to highlight a few that are happening in your area. One is Partners in Employment. That one supports services for immigrants and refugees that were heavily impacted by COVID-19 and seeking new jobs in aviation industry. They have two tracks. One is for adults and one is for youth. Next slide, please. And then we have 5 programs that are working in the South King County area: the African Community Housing Development, Asian Counseling and Referral Services, Businesses Ending Slavery and Trafficking, Puget Sound Welcome Back Center, and Washington Maritime Blue. And they'll be working in your community also, and we're really excited about all these programs that we're funding. And I'll pass it on to my colleague, Andy, to tell you about the environmental program.
Great, thanks, Allison. In addition to this amazing economic recovery work that Allison and her team and Office of Equity and Diversity and Inclusion led, the port saw this as an opportunity to expand our environmental investments in the communities. And so the easiest way to do this is through an expansion of the Airport Community Ecology, or ACE program. This program was launched in 2017 to support the communities in Burien, SeaTac, and Des Moines to provide additional resources for public improvement projects. The requirements of the program are that a community group lead the project, and that they are able to demonstrate a 3-to-1 match. We have a lot of creative ways that we help them to meet that match through volunteer time, as well as the value of trees planted, et cetera, et cetera. We expanded the geographic region for the program with this expansion through the South King County Fund to also include Federal Way, Normandy Park, and Tukwila. And we raised the per project grant cap from $10,000 up to $20,000. And I would just like to note that the ACE program was $550,000 was set aside for the small matching grants program when ACE was created. We've spent down about $365,000 out of that fund so far. And that balance of $185,000 is still being set aside for the original 3 cities, Burien, SeaTac, and Des Moines. And so as we get projects coming in through this new environmental grants program, if they come from one of the 3 original ACE cities, they'll spend down that funding before drawing down on the South King County Fund. One of the other things that we piloted with this program, which is new to the port and is really becoming a best practice for community engagement between multicultural, multilingual communities and local government, is a community liaison model. And so what we did was we invested in 8 representatives from a variety of very diverse communities around the airport to help us to shape the fund and to provide outreach opportunities within their communities. And so these folks came from Latinx, African-American, Somali, Congolese, Korean, Bhutanese, Filipino, and Pacific Islander communities, and were really instrumental in sharing opportunities, helping to craft our grant outreach materials, and encouraging their friends, coworkers, and neighbors, and sometimes family members to apply for grants. And so they sort of helped to steward them through the process, helped to coach the port staff on how we were engaging with the public to make sure that we were using language that was accessible and creating opportunities for folks to enter into what can be a really bureaucratic process to apply for and receive a grant. And so we received 16 proposals and are moving forward with 14 projects for a total of $218,000. And my colleague, Elise Aiden, is going to jump in now and talk about the projects that are being funded.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, everyone. So the project I wanted to highlight will serve the Des Moines community is the Puget Sound Keeper Alliance. And this project aims to empower youth leaders to support immigrant and refugee families as they do debris cleanups on kayak patrols and monitor the water quality in Des Moines' beaches and parks. And we'd love to continue to inform the city and Parks and Rec on the work they will be doing as we finalize contracts. Next slide. And the last part we wanted to share is our next round of funding. So for the Economic Recovery Program, we'll be funding up to $1.25 million in summer of 2021. That's when the RFP will open up. And then for the environmental grants, we will open our application in the fall of 2021, and that will be to fund up to $250,000. And so we'd love to keep you all posted on that to support any outreach efforts and to make sure that our community members in Des Moines are aware of the funding opportunities. Any questions?
I'm not seeing any. Are you seeing any? No, I think your presentation answered all the questions, and thank you.
Great, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, moving on, appreciate the input from the port. And I think just one one comment I'll make is that actions by the Port of Seattle to enhance diversity, both internally and externally in terms of their efforts, I think are more than welcome and applauded by us. So we appreciate that. So we're going to have a brief discussion again, and I'm only referring to it as brief since we have a number of things here. But an update from Sound Transit. I think Dan will maybe introduce this relative to their operations and maintenance facility.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased tonight to introduce some folks from Sound Transit that are here tonight to give a brief overview of the operation and maintenance facility south and the draft EIS work that's currently out for public comment. We have with us tonight Andrew Austin, Kirby Hawkins, and Chelsea Levy. I think I saw her name on here too. They're going to just give you a brief overview of kind of what's in the draft EIS. Right now our staff is currently reviewing that document and will issue comments later on this month or early in April. But I wanted to ask if they would come and present this to you, and I'm happy that they're here tonight to take this opportunity. So I'm going to turn it over to Sound Transit.
Thanks a bunch. My name is Andrew Austin. I'm the South Corridor Government Community Relations Manager for Sound Transit, joined by Kirby Hawkins, our Project Director, and Chelsea Levy, our South Corridor Capital Projects Director. We're going to try to give you a high-level overview at a pretty brief clip because we know you have a full agenda, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So with that, Kirby, I'll turn it over to you to jump in.
All right, well, thanks. Good evening, everyone. Again, Kirby Hawkins, and we'll go through this quickly so we can update you on the operations and maintenance facility. And really the big story here is that we've released a draft environmental impact statement, and we're in a public comment period. So this is part of the process of making sure that we make you aware of that and how we can get you or anyone, the general public, to provide comments. So just giving you some quick background, we'll talk about the 3 sites. We'll talk about quickly some of the differentiating results of the draft EIS, and then again, how we can provide, how you can provide those comments. So next slide, and we can go ahead and skip to the next slide here. So just quick background on operations and maintenance facility. It's part of Sound Transit's ST3 plan. We need 4 operations and maintenance facilities to be strategically located in our region, including the one that we're here talking about tonight, the Operations and Maintenance Facility South. It's a location where we will store 144 light rail vehicles. These vehicles are cleaned and maintained overnight at this facility, but there's other things that this facility supports, including just the regional light rail system itself. This facility will employ also 470 jobs, and I'll talk more about those jobs in a moment. Next slide, please. So these are the 3 potential sites that we've studied in the draft EIS that we're seeking comments on. The Midway landfill is one of those sites. The 336th Street site is in Federal Way, and then also a site at in Federal Way, the South 344th Street alternative. The Midway landfill is on about 60 acres, 68 acres on the Midway landfill. It's adjacent to the Federal Way Lake extension itself, and it is one of the 3 that is connected to the Federal Way Lake extension. To get to the sites in Federal Way, the 336th Street or 344th Street alternative, we would need to build an extending mainline guideway to reach those. So we evaluated the impacts of those, the mainline impacts as well. If we can go to the next slide, please. So at the Midway landfill, just a little more detail, just real briefly, we're looking at 3 design options at the Midway landfill because of the complexity at the landfill. It's not only is it a Superfund site, but there's just continuous ground settlement there. So we needed a strategy to address the ground settlement if we were to build on that particular site. So we identified 3 design options, which you can see here on the screen. A platform option, which is basically in a concrete platform supported by 700 drill shafts. We're looking at a hybrid option where we do partial excavation and then partial support of the facilities on top with drilled shafts. And then we do a full excavation where we would literally pull all of the contaminated material out of the ground, and then we would replace it with imported soil. So all of those have different levels of impact and different levels of construction timelines to do those. But the main thing here is that we needed to identify a way to address the ground settlement at that site. So that's why we had those different design options that you see on the screen here. I pointed out that there's 470 jobs associated with this OMF South. These are going to be new hires, new essential positions here that must be on site, and they're critical for the operating of the light rail system. So these employees will show up every day to work. These are employees such as light rail maintainers, the cleaners, the operators as well. And these positions are living wage jobs. So the average wage at our existing facility, for example, is over $40 per hour or $83,000 per year. We'll also have a training facility at this facility, wherever it's going to be located. And we're in active conversations with King County Metro to explore the development of an apprenticeship program. So that will help get local residents into these high-paying union career jobs. So we're excited about the opportunity to not only bring this much employment to wherever the site is located, but this opportunity to have this well-paying positions there and just career positions as well. There's just opportunities to grow the employment base. A person could start out working as a vehicle cleaner and then eventually move up to a vehicle maintainer. And those things just require more skill and higher wages as well. So great opportunities for this site, wherever this site is located. Next slide. So as part of our draft EIS, we studied quite a few things that are as far as impacts to wherever the site is located, those 3 sites that we've talked about. So the EIS studies both the built environment, such as impacts to low-income and minority populations, hazardous materials and economic effects, and also the natural environment, such as impacts to wetlands and sensitive areas, and then also understands what are the transportation impacts as well. So all of that is in our draft EIS. Next slide. So just quickly to go over just a quick summary of what the draft EIS actually identified and analyzed and the results of those. I'll talk about, just quickly some of the key differentiating factors here. As far as residential displacements, when you look at the 3 sites, the Midway landfill, 336th and 344th Street sites, 344th the 344th Street site has more residential and business displacements as well than the Midway landfill. So no residential displacements at the Midway landfill. Displacements at the Midway landfill alternative is 4, and those are primarily on the SR 99 side. Next slide, please. Looking at community and social resource impacts, none at the Midway landfill. The primary impacts are churches, which are in the Federal Way area. One of the 336th Street site is the Christian Faith Church, which is a pretty large church there, but there are also 3 smaller churches impacted by 344. As far as employee displacements, 43 are estimated at the Midway landfill. Most of the employee displacements are at the 344th Street site alternative. Next slide. Looking at ecosystem impacts, because of the nature of the landfill, there's really no sensitive areas at the Midway landfill, so no wetland nor stream impacts. There are some area of forest impacts So you see about 4 acres there that are impacted. Predominantly the federal way sites, because the Hollywood Creek system is in that area of South King County. Those areas are impacted a lot more so than you can see the Midway landfill alternatives. Next slide, please. So the Midway landfill alternative will take the longest to construct, from between 6 to 8.5 years, compared to the federal way sites, which will take about 3.5 years if they were selected. The Midway landfill alternative takes longer because of the below ground site preparation that's required to develop those sites. So looking at a sort of a comparison, the Midway landfill kind of hybrid alternative and the full excavation options require a lot of trucking of debris in and out of the site during the site preparation, and there are known contaminated materials on those sites as well. So this is going to generate considerably more daily truck trips on the local roads and on I-5 than compared to the federal way sites. To give you an example of how much debris needs to be excavated with either the full or the full excavation on the hybrid excavation options, it's going to be the equivalent of about 900 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So quite a bit of trucking to get that material out. As far as the annual operating costs, the 3 alternatives are pretty similar between the Midway, the 336th and 344th. However, the Midway landfill, there's a heightened risk of multiple weeks long partial or full closures over the 100-year facility lifetime. And this is due to the impacts of the ground settlement that could cause sort of our infrastructure to get out of alignment. And these closures could impact service throughout the region. Next slide, please. So this is a conceptual cost estimate. This analyzes, it shows the estimates between those design options at the Midway landfill and all the site alternatives. And these are reflected in a range because our design at this point is still preliminary in nature. So the red line represents the Sound Transit long range financial plan. And these estimates are really just for comparison purposes. And they do not include the cost of the mainline connection that we would need to build down to Federal Way. So just looking at a comparison, the Midway landfill is a higher conceptual cost estimate than the Federal Way sites. This is due in part to the below ground infrastructure that's required to prepare these sites before the OMF facility can be built on top. So that's a quick comparison of some of the key differentiators, and I will turn it now over to Andrew, and he will finish us up here.
Yep, just to wrap up, I'm going to talk a little bit about the public engagement, outreach, and timelines in terms of where we're at with this project. So as Kirby mentioned, we're in the middle of the draft EIS and comment period. So we're really in a moment where we're pushing that info out because we want to hear comments from folks. So we sent a mailer to businesses, property owners, and residents within half a mile of the 3 sites, emailed our project listserv of about 3,000 people, have sent press releases, are doing print and digital media ads, property owner and community briefings, as well as letting folks know through various social media channels because we really want to get the word out on this. In terms of the project timeline, the public comment period will run from March 5th until April 19th. After the public comment period closes, we will summarize everything we heard from the public, individuals, and agencies. And that'll be a document available to our public and the board. And all of that will help inform the board's decision of choosing a preferred alternative later this year. And the preferred alternative isn't a final decision, but it's an important time when the board weighs in going into the final EIS, which will be published in the middle of next year. And then the Sound Transit Board would select the project to be built middle to late next year. Sound Transit's also, as you might have heard in the news, in the midst of a process called realignment, dealing with the impacts of reduced revenues from the COVID-19 impacts and also cost increases on projects. So the board now and into this summer is going through a realignment process, looking at how to sequence their projects. And that could impact this timeline, but this is the timeline we're operating under right now, but it could change. Just in terms of how folks can listen or learn about this and comment, and this is the last slide, a great place to do it is the online open house. So that gives a lot of the information and even more detail than you heard tonight. That online open house is also fully translated into Korean, Spanish, and Russian, which to make it accessible to non-English speakers. And not only can you learn from that online open house, but folks can also comment right there on the open house page. We're going to have 2 public hearings. These will be virtual in lieu of in-person hearings, one in the evening and one in the afternoon. And those will be times when folks can formally, verbally give comment to Sound Transit on the DEIS. But if they can't make those hearings, we also have email, voicemail, and of course, snail mail options. So just trying to really push the word out about this project in terms of where we're at right now and make sure that it's accessible for folks to give comment into the process. So that's the conclusion of our presentation, but happy to take questions.
Mayor, you're muted.
Okay, we'll try again. I saw Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Harris, and Deputy Mayor Mahoney. So I will start with the one I saw first, which is Councilmember Buxton. Then I will go to Councilmember Harris, then Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. Very interesting. Thank you for this presentation. One thing that you mentioned, and for the sake of those of us that don't understand and the public who are watching, you mentioned that the Midway site was a Superfund site. Could you comment on the impact that would have on whether the project would be available for additional resource through another government agency, or is it actually detrimental, makes it not available for any extra resource? Could you comment on that?
Yeah, so I think that from the perspective of it being a Superfund site and the complications associated with that, in terms of time and cost, that was reflected, and we're continuing to assess and research if and at what level there might be grants that aren't normally for transit projects, but we don't have that all listed at this time, but we can definitely share that with you once we do.
Okay, that takes us to Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question, and I haven't read the draft EIS yet. Maybe it's answered in there. I am fascinated by the excavation alternative, and I would like to know if any of that is chosen, where will the debris go?
As far as the debris, that's yet to be determined at this point. We do know that it's hazardous material, so there's only a couple of locations, within the state of Washington, for example, that will, or even Oregon, that will accept such, contaminated material. We do need to truck it out, and eventually it will likely end up on a rail system somehow to get to its finished location if we needed to get it out. But that's yet to be determined where it ultimately ends up. That it will be part of a negotiation with whomever we would need to negotiate with to accept it.
But it sounds like a long
detail is not.
It sounds like a long way away when you mention trains.
Yeah, it's obviously contaminated material. You can't just move it next door, right? So to
No,
speak.
that's
It's
exactly
one of those
my
places
concern, is that you
Yeah.
churn up all of this stuff and then somehow it magically turns out, like 2 miles away. So that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks.
there's a process to haul it that we would need to work out for sure. And I think that's, what you're saying and where you're getting at.
Thank you, sir.
Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Councilmember Buxton kind of basically asked my question, because I know down at the Port of Seattle, they got tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to reconstruct the port there, because it was a Superfund site. So I got to believe there's money available. When will you have that information before the end of the public comment process? Because I think that's a key factor and offsets a lot of the additional cost.
Chelsea, do you want to jump in on that one?
So we've done a little bit of research into, hi, Chelsea Levy, I'm the South Corridor Development Director. We've done a bit of research into potential available federal grants. And actually our research has indicated that the grants that are eligible for a project like this are may not be the same type of grants that the port uses, or the port used for the runway. But that's still part of the investigations that we're doing. The Midway landfill is somewhat unique, and our OMF is unique. The OMF facility itself is unique, so it's not quite apples to apples, and we'll have to come back and provide additional information.
But you don't think it'll be done prior to the April 19th date?
Being able to provide follow-up information,
at least some kind of information.
I think we should. We should be able to provide that. We will do our best to provide it to the council prior to the close of the comment period.
Okay. And then my last question is, obviously the Midway site is a really good story of using what would be otherwise unusable as far as PR. Have you guys taken that into consideration, or is that a factor?
So one of the complicating factors with the Midway landfill is the length of time that it takes to construct the facility, to prepare the site for construction of the OMF facility itself, and then to construct the OMF on it. So, I don't know that I can really speak to your PR question specifically, but our environmental document identifies a number of challenges associated with preparing the site for construction of the facility at the landfill, and simultaneously acknowledges the potential community benefit as well. So there are trade-offs when considering that site for Sound Transit and for the region.
Thank you very much.
I don't see any other questions at this time. So I'll turn up. I see Dan Brewer.
I just want to thank the Sound Transit staff for coming tonight. Appreciate your presentation. That's very helpful. Council, we are continuing to review the documents. We're in close communication and coordination with the City of Kent. I mean, this facility would be located in the City of Kent, but there would be obvious impacts to Des Moines streets. And if you look at the 3 design options for the Midway site, it's interesting that the least expensive option is to dig all the material out and haul it away. So that's over 500 truckloads a day for 7 to 8.5 years. Okay, that's going to have an impact on some local streets. So we're taking a look at that, and we'll coordinate comments relative to the traffic study on that. So.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll send follow-up info on the grants question.
Thank you. City Manager Matthias.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sound Transit. Appreciate that. So what I'm going to do now is ask, we're getting there, Brandon to give a brief summary of 2 items that are on consent, numbers 8 and number 9, that are ILAs with our with local utilities just to kind of to highlight the dynamic of those, the partnership, the cooperation, working with our local utilities. So Brandon, please.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, as Michael mentioned, these are consent items, number 8 and number 9. Bonnie's going to be bringing up just a couple of little aerial PDFs to kind of give you an idea of where these are at. But essentially, item number 8 is an interlocal agreement with Water District 54. They are going to be replacing about 1,700 lineal feet of water line. This is on 8th Avenue South between 223rd and 220. I'll try to get that there. That's 272nd. Could you go to the other one, Bonnie? Thank you. So, and so it's an opportunity for the city to partner with Water District 54 as they dig down and trench and replace this asbestos water line. We've been waiting for them for some time. They're essentially a utility, normally is on the hook to restore half the roadway or a lane, if you will. That's a great image. And so you can see the red is essentially the location of the water line replacement and overlay. So we will be partnering with Water District 54 to get basically a full roadway overlay in this area. Parts of the roadway are in pretty bad shape, so it's going to require a bit more reconstruction, if you will, subsurface. And so that is item number 8. Total cost to the city about $215,000 when you factor in design, construction, and some construction management. Just a side note, since this 8th Avenue South is often a bypass, if you will, and during some congested times from Marine View Drive, we're going to preemptively install 3 speed bumps in this corridor. Again, if you're just a reminder to everyone, this is one-way northbound. This is a one-way roadway, at least for 8th Avenue. Bonnie, if you could move to the other graphic, I'll speak to the item 9 is down in the Woodmont area. This is a partnership with Lake Haven. They are replacing about 3,000 linear feet of water line. Some of the water line extends south of 272nd onto private roadways. But in the portion that's public in the red there, we are partnering with them, similar concept to get a full lane of pavement, new pavement in this area on these roadways. That the cost of that interlocal is about $187,000. Funding for both of these comes from our franchise fees that we collect from the utilities. And so it's money going back into the community as well. It's really the best deal out there from a pavement perspective. We're getting 50 cents on the dollar, if you will, to overlay roadways where there's a partnership with these utilities. And really when these come along, they're great opportunities. As several of you are aware, we've worked with Highline as they're doing their water line replacement up in North Hill. And as the weather hopefully breaks soon, we'll get the final overlay done. But that was a partnership with Highline that put about $500,000 into the pavement for the residents up there on several local roads. So with that, I'm happy to take questions if there's time, but just wanted to brief you as to those 2 items on the consent agenda.
I am not seeing any questions at this time. Wait a sec. Oh, I'm sorry, J.C. Harris, Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Brandon. Mayor, just really quick, is it simply replicating what is there, or will there be any alteration, widening, especially along 8th Avenue?
Short answer is replicating what is there.
Okay. The other thing is just a general guess on start dates for each of these.
Good question. I think both utilities are looking to try to get these projects out to bid in late April, early May, to take advantage of the spring, summer construction schedule. And tentatively, we'd like to see these being overlaid and finished out by October. September this year. So we're hopeful that they can both be done this year for sure.
Okay, one last real quick thing. Any impact on like the local businesses, anti-Irene's or whatever people, you know?
Well, yes, I mean, naturally construction, there's impacts to when there's construction, and I think we will work with the utilities to notify residents and businesses. There may be brief periods where there's traffic closures, one lane or alternating traffic. And so there is going to be impacts, and we will try to have to work with the businesses to lessen those and mitigate those, but certainly keep access to businesses open, and residents naturally. There's always trash, solid waste. Those activities occur, mail, everything has to keep going as normal.
Thank you, Brendan.
Yeah, Mayor, just one comment. I think the thing is that I know Brandon and everyone associated with this are concerned about the impacts, at least during the period of construction. But I want to tell you, improvements to 8th right there at that corner are going to be huge in terms of benefit for anti-Irene's and everybody else. And the first thing, you drive out of there with your coffee, you turn north and you go, oh my God. And you have to start paying attention to the fact that it's like you're on a roller coaster. So that'll be great to see that. And Brandon, appreciate all your efforts on this. I know even simple things are complicated. So we appreciate you working on this. Mayor, I'd like to move on just briefly. Myself, our legislative advocate, Mr. Hemstead, we've been going through the American Relief Fund, 682 pages. I probably read most of it at this point. It was interesting that when it was in the Senate, the Senate Republicans, as they were entitled through the rules, requested that the bill be read into the record. So that was 682 pages that took 10 hours by Senate staff to accomplish that. And we're just going through it carefully. We're also working closely with U.S. Conference of Mayors, AWC, and other independent Washington lobbyists to make sure that we understand the full breadth of possibility for our local jurisdiction. So there'll be more on that as we go forward. And finally, the last thing on our item tonight, I want to tell you that on March 18th, 1996, a young man was hired, and that person has now achieved 25 years, and that's Scott Wilkins. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you all. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, Scott, your tenure's just under half of this city's tenure. That's remarkable.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, I can't even begin to speak to what a great job Scott has done, is doing, and every day exhibiting new skills we didn't know he had. So he kept it a secret.
Neither did I.
Yeah, and Mayor, fortunately, that concludes my administration report.
Mayor, may I ask a quick question of the city manager?
Yes.
I don't know where else to insert it, but there's been some talk of diversity tonight, and it brought to mind, and I don't mean it to be a gotcha. You can answer offline, but I've noticed that there are several positions open in the city right now, planning and building, and we get comments fairly often.
Actually, Councilmember Harris, this should come under your council member comments and your council and committee reports.
Yeah, I'm happy to move it over there. Sure. I just want to try to get some feedback from the city on, outreach.
I think that the point of this particular item is to honor Mr. Wilkins.
Okay, so Councilmember Harris, I would ask that you hold this to
Sure.
Councilmember Collins? Okay,
And that concludes my report, Mayor.
thank you, Michael. And at this point, I would ask, will the clerk please read the consent calendar?
Item 1, approval of vouchers. Item 2, property acquisition for Midway Park expansion in Pacific Ridge, 22128 and 22120 28th Avenue South. Item 3, Public Defender Service Contract 2021 to 2023. Item 4, Women's History Month Proclamation. Item 5, sole source contract for the purchase of 3 GILBARCO legacy fuel dispensers for the City of Des Moines MARINA'S fuel dock. Item 6, Arts Commission appointment. Item 7, disposal of abandoned vessels in the City of Des Moines Marina. Item 8, interlocal agreement with Water District 54 and 8th Avenue South water main replacement installation, South 227th Street and South 223rd Street. Item 9, interlocal agreement with Lake Haven Water and Sewer District for South 272nd Street and vicinity water main replacement project. And that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Motion made by Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Second.
And did I hear a second from Councilmember Buxton?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any council member that wishes to remove an item? Seeing Councilmember Buxton.
I'd like to pull item number 5, Mayor.
Item number 5. Okay. All right, with that, we will be voting on items 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So all those in favor of those items on the consent, please raise your hand until I call your name. Okay, I see. Okay, at this time, I see Deputy Mayor Mahoney, I see Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Harris, and myself. Councilmember Bangs is not in view at this time, but we do have 5, so the agenda passes 5 to. I'm sorry. 5 to, a point of clarification by the attorney, is it 5 to 2 or 5 to 0 or 5 to 1?
Well, since this is a consent calendar and we've had to deal with this before, we need unanimous consent. However, if Councilmember Banks is not present, it would be 5 to 0. So you can make a call, ask if she's present, and the city clerk could note that she's not present.
I think the clerk should note that she's not present at this time, and we'll take the item at 5 to 0. And that has been noted. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, at this time, we need to go back to the item that was pulled. And the item is item number 5, and I will go to Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. So the reason I wanted to pull this is simply for the, it did say that we were waiving the state competitive bidding requirements for the purchase. And so I just wanted to make a clarification if anybody had a question about that. My comments and the reason that I would move for this anyway is because the equipment is proprietary, the infrastructure and software is all proprietary. I wanted to mention the Harbor Master made a great case in the discussion portion of the packet. If anybody wants to read, he did a great job describing that, but I just thought it would be great to highlight these points. That only 3 companies in America would be part of this competitive bidding process, and the price to change out would not reflect savings or recovery of expense, even if we chose another company. So that's why I would be voting in favor of this, even though we're waiving some state competitive bidding requirements. So that's my only comment. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, with that, Councilmember Buxton, because you pulled the motion, pulled the item, Would you care to make the motions?
Sure. So motion 1, I move to approve the draft resolution number 21-011, waiving state competitive bidding requirements for the purchase of 3 GILBARCO legacy fuel dispensers for the MARINA'S fuel dock.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Buxton, seconded by Deputy Mayor Mahoney. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, and myself. Those who abstain, I'm sorry, or those opposed, I'm sorry. Okay, Councilmember Martinelli was opposed. Okay, so that passes 4-1. Councilmember Buxton, back to you.
Motion number 2, I move to approve the contract with Northwest Pump and Equipment Company for the purchase of 3 GILBARCO legacy fuel dispensers in the sum of $53,189.29, with a contingency amount not to exceed $5,000, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract substantially in the form as attached.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Buxton, seconded by Deputy Mayor Mahoney. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. I see Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, myself, and Deputy Mayor Mahoney. Opposed? Councilmember Martinelli. Passes 4-1. Okay, that completes our consent calendar. At this point, I would, we did pass a proclamation summary dealing with Women's History Month, and Councilmember Buxton, would you like to read that into the record, please?
Thank you, Mayor. In regard to this, because of a tragedy that happened this week, and it's somewhat connected, I would like to read a little statement that was made by Sound Cities Association President Ed Prince as a preliminary to this proclamation. We are all saddened by the horrific murders of 8 people in Atlanta on Tuesday, including at least 6 Asian American women. This terrible violence comes at a time when all across the country and in our region, we have seen a dramatic rise in racist attacks against Asian Americans. Racism in any form has no place in our society, and we must do all that we can collectively to eradicate hate and embrace the strength in our diversity. I know that all of us share in our offering of deepest sympathies to the families and loved ones of the individuals who so tragically and senselessly lost their lives. Please let us honor those lost by recommitting ourselves as individuals within our cities and Sound Cities Association as an organization to combating racism, intolerance, bigotry in all of its forms. So with that in mind, I will now read our proclamation. Whereas throughout American history, women and girls have made vital contributions, often in the face of discrimination and undue hardships. And whereas courageous women marched for and won the right to vote, campaigned against injustice, shattered countless barriers, and expanded the possibilities of American life. And whereas our history is also replete with examples of unfailing bravery and the grit of women in America, particularly in times of crisis and emergency. And whereas women served our nation during World War II, led organizing and litigation efforts during the Civil Rights Movement, and represented the United States on the global stage in the fight for human rights, peace, and security. And whereas far too often their historic efforts, their stories have gone untold, especially the millions of African-American women, immigrant women, and others from diverse communities who have strengthened America across every generation. Now, therefore, the Des Moines Council hereby proclaims March as Women's History Month and urges all residents to join them in this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. This takes us forward to new business. And council, as I committed at the last meeting, we have a new item. It's actually not a new item. It's just present on the regular agenda under new business, and it's called Introduction of Items for Future Consideration. As a reminder, council rules still apply in that 3 or more council members need to support the item for it to be considered. Once the item is introduced, and if there is support, the distribution of how the item will be handled will be cited by the city manager on where he thinks it would be most appropriate based on the staff workload. We will not be discussing the item in any detail tonight, nor will we be taking a vote to approve any of those items. And so at this point, I will ask if there are any council members who wish to bring an item forward. I see Councilmember Harris. You're muted, sir.
Yeah, sorry, a bit slow. So yeah, I would like to have the resolution that I emailed to all of you a couple of weeks ago implemented, putting this into the rules of procedure. This should be an official part of either Rule 9 or have its own place of pride. So yeah, I put forward language, and I'd like to turn it over to the city attorney to create a resolution codifying it.
So there isn't a change to anything. This item is already on, and I will yield to our attorney, Tim George. New business is a piece that typically, I mean, it's part of the agenda. What's happened is when there hasn't been staff brought forward new business, it wasn't printed just to save space, essentially. It's like the executive session. We have executive session there should we choose to or need to go into it. But in fact, it's there, but not always used. I would like to look to our city attorney, Tim George. Is there any change to procedure here?
That's correct. Well, in my opinion, that we don't need a rule change for this because we already have a rule to get items on the agenda. And you've essentially put this item on the agenda. With that said, we kind of, as staff, we keep a list of items for potential rule changes. And we're planning on, subject to workload, having probably a study session at a coming up meeting to address potential changes to the rules. So certainly at that meeting, this could be added to that list if Councilmember Harris thought that was appropriate, and then the entire council could weigh in at that time.
So I do think this is a change because I and other council members have tried to introduce new business at meetings, and the Rule 9 has been basically, brought forth and said, no, you have to bring this up ahead of the meeting. And that's what Rule 9 says. It says ahead of the meeting. It doesn't say that you can do this stuff during the meeting, and I have been chastised when trying to bring some item up during the meeting. There was no space for this, and it was created out of thin air, and all I'm saying is put it in writing so that it cannot be taken away, and so that we understand the rules of the game in actually doing this going forward.
Councilmember Harris, Rule number 9 clearly states that if 3 members come together to bring something on the agenda, they bring it forward, and then the city manager and the mayor work to get it on a future agenda.
But the agendas happen ahead of the meeting. You don't change the agenda during the meeting.
No, you don't, because the reason that they're asking you to bring it forward so we can get it on a future agenda. This is for transparency. The reason we publish our agendas on Fridays is to give the council time to review things through the weekend as well, but also so the community can know what's on our agenda, and should they want to speak or address anything, they have the opportunity to do so.
And I've asked
for in the past, would you let me finish, sir? What you were chastised for in the past was making motions out of thin air. Nobody saw this coming. You wanted the council to vote and pass items that in fact they had no information on. The reason rule number 9 exists is to work with the mayor and the city manager so we can get things on the agenda, give the staff opportunity to give us information so we can really make an informed decision. Also to inform the public so they can weigh in on this.
What should have happened with anything I or anyone has proposed is exactly what you're changing the rules of the game, and that's grand. I'm all in favor of what you're proposing. I'm just saying, put it in writing. You have made a change in the order of business in an ad hoc fashion. It shouldn't be this controversial. It should just be in writing.
I have not made a change. I am making sure that new business is brought, that remains on the agenda. If you look on past agendas, you will find new business has been.
Then please just put it in writing. Please just support what I'm asking for and put it in writing.
Okay, I see Councilmember Buxton, then Councilmember Martinelli.
So along with what the city attorney did mention or suggest, I would be in favor of just remanding this subject to the study session where the topic of council rules will be addressed.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I mean, so do we have consensus? Is that what we will do? So yeah, it's added to the list that the city attorney has for future council rule reference.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I have an ongoing list of items that I've heard from council members, items that have come up as we've had meetings and had issues. So when the time is right, when we have time to set it up, we'll just add that to the list for the upcoming study session when that's scheduled.
Okay, Councilmember Martinelli, and then I think I had Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to state that I am actually in slight disagreement with Councilmember Harris, and that I do think, even if maybe a loophole was used, that the mayor does have the authority to make this change. That said, what Councilmember Harris is proposing is to make it a permanent part of the agenda, so that it's not something that the mayor can simply take away. So I think that those aren't mutually exclusive. I think that you could have the authority to do what you did, but still we should consider immediately making it a permanent part of the agenda, so that, and I'm not saying you're going to do this, Mayor, so that next week you could decide to remove this item if the items that are introduced you don't like. So I think that this really needs to be a permanent part of the agenda, as it is in almost every other city. And I think the debate around whether you have the authority to do it this way, I think is moot to the point that we should make it permanent. And that's my stance. And I give Councilmember Harris the second to move this forward. And I'm not sure if there's a third.
At this point, I only see two people looking to put this on, do anything with this. Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Just a quick comment. It almost appears that we are trying to make a change to council rules here, just like we would when we discuss the other ones. If I'm not mistaken, that requires 2 readings in a process to change the rule. So I'm for this being delayed to a later date when we discuss council rules as a whole. I think it's understood that this will be here and won't go away.
Yeah,
So I would ask, when will that study session be? It's been over a year since rules of procedures have been talked about.
At this point, it is not on our futures. We will have to determine a date, but they are typically done as part of a work study session. And we will have to look at a future date. I will talk with City Manager Matthias about that.
Could we agree that it should be sooner rather than later?
It's semantics. I will get it on a future agenda, working with the city manager as soon as the opportunity exists. Okay, at this point, I see no other hands. I will take us to our board and committee reports and council member comments. And tonight we will start with Councilmember Harris.
Candy. Okay, so yeah, I would ask of the city manager, since apparently questions are in here as well. The city now has openings for some fairly high quality jobs in planning and building, and I'm wondering what steps the city takes in terms of outreach on when it comes to diversity. Do we actively go to the University of Washington, for their various recruiting nights? And yeah, how does that work? Are we more just we wait for people to apply? And if you don't have an answer now, I would just like to, I'm happy to take the answer offline.
Great, let's do that.
Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, I was really happy to see the public comment tonight. They were, it's been a while and it was high quality, just really good. I attended a Reach Out Des Moines meeting yesterday, which was just really fantastic. They want to do a series of videos on parenting skills, and I hope they say they will reach out to the city, and I hope we can make that happen. I want to sort of tag on to the people who spoke at Redondo and say that I would favor that there be some sort of study session, town halls that talk about a comprehensive long-range plan. What concerns me with the bathrooms is that it seems to me the problems at Redondo are manifest and they've been long-term, and we should find some way to address this holistically. All of the things that both the single-family residents and the condo dwellers are concerned about, as well as any kind of future parks, economic development. It's all of one piece, and it should be discussed that way. Changing the bathrooms affects like 5 other things, and I hope we can approach it more that way. I just wanted to tell you that I attended no, skip it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I agree with Councilmember Harris. The community engagement tonight was fabulous. It's the largest number of participants, community participants in our council meeting that we've had since COVID began. And so I was so happy to hear the feedback, the courage, people deciding they were going to just brave it and come and speak in front of all of us. So I really appreciated that. On the consent calendar, we are appointing a new person to the Arts Commission. So I just wanted to say welcome, Alex, if you're watching. The Human Services Advisory Committee met today, and they are doing a great thing. They're assisting some of our agencies outreaching to help them be creative while engaging our community virtually. So I just wanted to give kudos to our Human Services Advisory Committee for that extra effort. Then I wanted to speak for a moment about a levy that's coming up in in August. It's called the Best Starts for Kids. And there was a levy that passed about 6 years ago. It's coming up for renewal in King County. And it totals over the 6 years, it will have totaled about $404 million. It's support for families prenatal to early adulthood. It provides home-based services, programs that promote healthy development. And as this levy comes up, though, they're going to be asking for an increase. And so it looks like a 35% increase, but really the bottom line is it's going to almost double the resource over the next 6 years. So this 6-year levy would have produced about 440 million. And the next 6 years, if the levy passes with the increase, will produce about 872 million. So I just wanted to say that I think it's a big ask in trying times, especially for fixed income folks, because this is a levy that will come off of it's a property tax levy. So it will be the people who pay property taxes will be levied, nobody else. So for fixed income folks and young families, that's going to be tough. If the levy is increased, or excuse me, passed at the same rate, there will still be an increase, just not as much, and the increase will be noticeable. Anyway, so my ask is to the council if we would consider writing a letter to the Sound Cities Association is asking for an opinion and support to write a letter to the county, really the policy board that will be making recommendations to the county. They're asking for feedback from all the cities. And so I'm asking if our council would want to give feedback in regard to this levy.
So
the feedback, the options would be don't pass it at all. Our opinion would be we disagree with this, period, or pass it but keep it the same, or we agree with passing it and increasing it by almost doubling the end result.
So if I understand this correctly, Councilmember Buxton, this came up at the PIC.
Yes.
It's going to go to the SCA board to make a recommendation to King County.
Yes.
It's the fund as it is collected right now is around 14.5 cents per thousand of assessed value.
Well, it's a weird calculation. Right now, it's technically 11.9, but it's calculated based on property tax assessments, but it started at 14, yes.
Okay, and then they're proposing to increase the amount collected per thousand?
Yes.
Okay.
To 19 cents
to
per
19
thousand.
cents. To 19
19
cents.
Per thousand valuation. That's what it would start at.
Okay, but the levy is about to expire, correct?
Correct. So the vote, go ahead.
So I guess what I'm trying to be clear about is, so if the levy expires, then there's zero money going in.
That starts for kids.
But if they keep it at the renewal rate, it's just a continuation of what people are paying right now in their current property tax at the same amount or same assessment. Now, it will go up though, because as property values go up, that assessment is on a per thousand basis, correct?
You know that I was wrong when I informed you about that yesterday. The way it works is they value it at 20 this will be for 2022. So whatever they decide, let's say it's, and they get an amount. If it's 14 cents in 2022 and whatever that amount is, they keep that same amount per year. So so whatever the 22 value is, you just times it by 6 for 6 years. So the reason that the percentage changes per year is because they spread that amount out amongst property taxpayers every year, which is always in flux, and values are always in flux. But the amount that is established in the first year stays the same for 6 years.
I guess where I'm at is that I think this provides an essential need and probably more so given our current economic times. And typically I would be, the city chose not to increase any tax collection And I feel like, so in our property tax, and so we waived the 1% this year, if people recall. A continuance of this, if the money goes away, I think that's going to be a considerable loss. A continuance of this makes sense. An increase of this while our economy is on the way to hopefully recover in a shorter period than a longer period, that I'm concerned about that. I guess
Mayor, can I make a quick note here? We're kind of getting into taking a position on a political issue, which would an election issue.
So let me ask you a question then, Tim.
Yeah.
So what Tracy's doing is she's reported out on what happened at the PIC, which is appropriate for this portion of the meeting, but there is a determination of, does the city want to write a letter to, and she's been given 3 options: let it expire, what, as she mentioned, or continue it, or to increase it. And this is supposed to be potential feedback to the SCA board that she would represent. Or, well, actually, the letter would come from the city. So
yeah, we're kind of in a.
Do we move this to a future agenda? What, or?
Well, they're asking for feedback ideally by Monday. And so the Regional Policy Committee of King County is asking for input from the cities. We did receive I think we might have received a letter. So you're right, Tim, I'm willing to do whatever. I'm just curious as to why
I mean, when it comes to election issues, if the council wants to take a position on a levy, there's a process that's involved, which would be a resolution. There has to be public comment. So we're not there tonight.
Okay.
But maybe Michael could take a look at this, and I don't think the council's in a position to act on this tonight. It hasn't been noticed or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. And, we'll try to find out if there's a position, but I really think in the context of our earlier discussions about appropriate ways to take action, it's surprising to me to have that come up through council reports leading to an action. And I understand the time frame, Councilmember Buxton, and whatever valuable, wonderful, legitimate use of the money this is, which it sounds like it is, I just think we want to be consistent in our process. So let me work with Tim, and maybe we need to poll council where I send out an email, get your feedback, whatever. And then there's kind of a after the fact discussion and public input on this to support the position that we take. But it's a little tricky when this happens.
I think it's very tricky because it was presented at the PIC. They're looking for feedback. I don't even know that the council has the time to prepare or to even have a discussion about the response. It'll be past the time of the SCA board. So I guess or the board wanting the input. So I think at this point,
well, okay. So one more little bit.
We've heard, but I don't think we're in the position to make any comment.
But so just one more piece. The ballot is not crafted yet. So this is input on the creation of it. So the Regional Policy Committee is trying to make a recommendation to King County. The King County council members, they haven't even decided that it's going to be on a ballot. So it's not that we're making recommendation about a vote. We are making recommendation about the creation of something that will go on a ballot. And the details are not even going to be available until the summer. So this isn't advocating for a yes or a no vote on something that has been crafted. This is input on the crafting of the item.
Yeah, so that probably makes a big difference. I haven't seen this. So, anytime I hear talk about, yay or nay from the council on a potential issue that's going to be, at the ballot box, I want to make sure that the council's on the right side of that. So I think there's certainly there's certainly some issues that maybe staff can look into on this or get some more information.
Yeah, I think the staff does need to take a look at this, Tim. There's part of me that says, I guess you wait until you find out what they're going to propose to run, and then at that point, the city can decide whether or not they weigh in on it. It's typically, in my experience here, we haven't weighed in on too many things like that, but we have weighed in on a few. But there is a process to it, and it does give the chance for the public to respond and so forth. So, but I think in terms of giving some kind of feedback based on what they're asking for, over the weekend, I just don't think we're in the position to be able to address it that way.
And Mayor, if I may add one thing, this happens occasionally where there appears to be a short time frame. And this has happened to me, involved the SCORE admin board, where there's decisions made in the moment or within a week or whatever, before there's really a chance to check in. And I think the best thing to keep in mind as we move forward with regional issues and legislative issues and so forth is to have a broad enough perspective that something like this would be defined within something we've already looked at, generally speaking. So, it sounds like a good thing. I'm sure it's something we'll want to support, but that's still a council decision based on the specifics. So I'm just saying the timing doesn't always work. I think it puts Tracy in a bad position if she needs a response before there's even a future council meeting. And that's hard. And I know that's happened with SCORE, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think that means the only response could be for Councilmember Buxton is that because of the timeline it takes for a council to weigh in and go through the appropriate processes, we don't have the time to respond. We're unable to respond at this time.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, that takes us forward to Councilmember Martinelli.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to state that I'm a bit disappointed that no one provided Councilmember Harris with a third for his proposal. It was so common sense, and I don't think that there's a reason for us to wait until we do rule change discussion, especially when that's not even planned yet. I want to thank everyone who gave presentations today. They were all quite informative, and those were great. I also want to thank Councilmember Buxton for removing item 5 from the consent agenda. I would have done so if she didn't. The reason I voted no is because I do oppose removing or waiving the state competitive bidding requirement. And under almost any instance, I oppose waiving that. And finally, I just want to bring up again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record. It's been about 2 months now since I brought up that our committees are not on YouTube. And I just want to continue harping on that. We're still in a position where if somebody is not available at 3:30 in the afternoon, they have absolutely no way whatsoever of watching our committee meetings. They can't watch it live. They can't watch it, after the case. Again, I think this is really important. I'm confident that our IT department has the know-how to figure this out. If not, I or other individuals would be able to do it, without sounding crass. It really is kind of an easy thing to do. We already have the technology set up, and I understand the issue with the conference rooms and cameras. I also think those are easy things to figure out. And I just hope that we can move forward on this quickly, because again, I just don't think it's okay that we're in a situation where if somebody works a 9-to-5 job, they absolutely under no circumstance can watch our committee meetings. And so I just really hope we can move forward on that at a quicker pace. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to welcome Councilmember Bangs back to the meeting due to technical difficulties. Looks like you dropped off, but you have the floor at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. Really crazy. I don't know what happened. Can you hear me though?
Yes.
Okay. So my report this evening will be that I attended the Arts Commission meeting, and I want to welcome Alex Cunningham. Thank you for allowing that to go through. We discussed basically the banner program, which is being proposed at this point. Of course, SR3 ribbon cutting coming up. Some more information on the Midway Park hand painted installations up there. For Culture Sustained Support, we got their support with a $8,000 grant. And the virtual music sessions, we're going to continue those, as well as the virtual music in the park. Hopefully we'll get back to live music in the park, if not late this summer, maybe early next year. So we're really hoping. Arts and Culture 2022 program, we're going to be partnering with King County Library System, and we'll have more to report on that. So we're really excited about that. But I'm more excited about the wrap, hopefully wrapping some of these utility boxes that have a tendency to be tagged. So the Arts Commission is coming along, one member at a time. Also, I wasn't able to attend, but Nicole Nordum gave me a really good synopsis of what happened at Senior Services. We're going to be working on another shredding event after tax day, since that went so well last time down at the marina. And we're looking to partner with community members to continue the cleanup events in the city, which is awesome. Also, there is a African Diaspora Friday lunch series starting up again through the Vets, Seniors, and Human Services Levy Grant. And the first one will be March 26th, and it will be Taste of Congo. And I believe our city clerk, Bonnie Wilkins, has a flyer that she can post on our website, or we can look at it right now. It's really a lovely poster, and it talks about what the lunch will be comprised of. There we go. And since it's so small, I can't see it. So hopefully everyone will be able to read that. But again, it will be on our Des Moines City website. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. First thing I'd like to say is that I work with several Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And I can say over the last couple of days, to have these people in tears for what's transpired in America is sad, through stupidity and ignorance, and it must stop. The next thing I'd like to say is that on a better note, that Creole Soul will be having their grand opening. Several of us will be there. Great Cajun food, used to be where Dana Cage used to be, so I'm excited about that. There's going to be the Poverty Bay Wine Festival. That's going to be on March 27th from 4 to 8. This is sponsored by the Des Moines Normandy Park Rotary and Destination Des Moines. And I urge everybody to attend and buy a couple bottles of wine and so forth. This money goes to great causes. It gets dictionaries for kids. It helps put on the fireworks in our community. It gets coats for kids and all kinds of great other charitable programs that these two organizations put. So please put that on your list. It's going to be a virtual event this year. And the final thing I got, because I'm a big basketball fan, is go Zags.
Well, folks, you guys are a tough act to follow. You've covered all the things that that are going on and so forth. And I do want to thank the folks on the presentations tonight. As people know, because of my background involvement in the schools, I'm really excited about the Maritime High School, its connection into the city of Des Moines, and it's because we are connected to the Sound. And so it's a very exciting program to have open up. So anyway, with that, we are at the end of our meeting. Our next meeting will be April 8th, 2021. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, I see the motion by Councilmember Bangs and the second by Deputy Mayor Mahoney. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. Okay, Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Harris, Deputy Mayor Mahoney and myself. And with that, we are adjourned.